On July 9, 2014, Ronald Haskell rang the doorbell at a quiet suburban home in Spring, Texas. He was dressed like a delivery man, but he wasn't there to drop off a package. He had a stolen 9mm pistol and over 200 rounds of ammunition. Cassidy Stay, just 15, answered the door. Moments later, he forced his way inside. He tied up everyone, adults and children. Then, one by one, he asked where his ex-wife was. And when they answered, he pulled the trigger. 6 members of the Stay family lost their lives that day. Cassidy survived by acting lifeless. Hours later, still injured, she called 911 and gave police his name. Ronald Lee Haskell was born in California in 1980. He spent part of his childhood in Alaska. Those who knew him back then say he was friendly, quick with a joke, involved in church youth groups and Boy Scouts. But something shifted after his marriage. His ex-wife would later describe a pattern of emotional and physical harm. She eventually fled with their 4 children, starting over in Texas, under the roof of her sister Katie Stay. Haskell didn't let it go. The anger followed him. In the year leading up to it, his brother noticed something had changed. Ronald seemed troubled, almost haunted. Whatever was brewing inside him finally reached a breaking point in the summer of 2014. This wasn't impulsive. He drove from California to Utah, stole a gun from an ex-girlfriend and loaded up on ammunition. Then he continued to Texas, dressed in a courier disguise. He had a plan and a target. At 711 Leaflet Lane, Cassidy opened the door. What followed was cold and calculated. One by one, he bound the victims. One by one, he asked about his ex-wife. And when he got answers, he acted. No hesitation, no mercy. Then, as if nothing happened, he stole their car. He drove to a fast food restaurant. But Cassidy had survived. She waited until he left. Then she called 911. Thanks to her, police intercepted Haskell just miles away, near his ex-wife's parents' home. He had more ammunition, and he was headed there next. People wondered if he was driven by untreated mental illness or by revenge. His defense said he had serious mental health issues. They said he heard voices and lacked legal responsibility. They noted diagnoses like bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. They pointed to his long effort to seek help. Prosecutors disagreed. They said he was calculating and cold. They noted his careful plan, his disguise, and how he carried out the act. A prosecutor said this plan grew from anger and a wish to punish those helping his ex-wife. Law officers said he seemed clear-minded during the act, and when he was stopped, they saw no signs of confused behavior. The trial began in August 2019. Over several weeks, the prosecution shared forensic findings, witness accounts, including Cassidy's, and details of his travel and planning. Officials described the scene. Defense experts argued mental illness affected his judgment. Prosecutors replied that his actions showed he was well aware of what he was doing. On September 26, 2019, the jury found him guilty on 6 counts of a capital offense, rejecting the claim of legal incapacity. They then considered punishment. After about 4 hours, they chose capital punishment on October 11, 2019. During that phase, Cassidy spoke to him. "Do I think this punishment fits what you did? No. I hope that when your time comes, you receive what you deserve from God. Only God can help you now." Her words showed the family's ongoing pain. Midway through, there was a twist. A judge ordered he be moved briefly from the unit where he waited for final punishment to the county jail for an MRI. Later, that judge was removed for bias in January 2025. As of 2025, he remains on row, waiting at the Alan B. Polonsky unit for a final date. The next survivor was just 10, hurt, injured, and the only one left to call for help. Xavier Davis was born around 1993 in Houston, Texas. He grew up in a home marked by poverty and pain. His mother, Tawaneka Pope, later testified that Xavier and his siblings were regularly mistreated. She blamed their absent father. An older brother said bluntly, "We were treated like slaves." Their grandmother struggled with addiction. The house, by all accounts, was broken. But not all the children went the same way. One sibling built a new life, started a business, raised a family. Another spent time in juvenile detention for a nonviolent offense. But Xavier? His path turned darker. By 2021, his history went back to his teens, involving stolen items, physical harm, and threats. Just a month before it all came to a head, he was out on bail for harming a girlfriend. Then came June 30th. That night, Xavier Davis forced his way into a Jeep Compass. It wouldn't stop there. Police believe he had help from someone who knew the family. Alexis Williams, a childhood friend of Davis and the former partner of Doña Villalagüe, allegedly offered him money and valuables. She called him as it happened, watching from a distance. He arrived at about 10:30 p.m. He demanded money. He then used a firearm against Gregory and Doña Villa in a way that left no chance to survive. He also used the firearm against their 6-year-old daughter, causing her immediate loss of life. He fired at the 10-year-old daughter as well. She was badly hurt, but managed to pretend she was not awake. She called for help while shielding her infant brother. Prosecutors say he did not hesitate. He targeted everyone to leave no witnesses and complete the taking of property. He took money and jewelry and left in the vehicle. That vehicle was later found burned in Brazoria County. He was found and taken into custody on July 1st at his partner's home, a day after the act. He faced first-degree charges related to taking life and causing serious harm, plus charges for taking property by force. He first pleaded not guilty. On March the 24th, 2025, the first day of trial, he changed his plea to guilty for the counts about taking life. The trial then focused on whether to impose the most severe penalty or life in prison. The prosecution described him as a continuing threat, citing behavior while in custody and past acts. The defense pointed to his traumatic background and asked for life in prison. A young survivor gave an account in court. The child described how Xavier knocked and pulled at the boy, then used a firearm on the parents and the younger sibling while the 10-year-old pretended to be unconscious. After 18 days of testimony, the jury moved to the punishment phase. They took about 3 to 4 hours to decide. They agreed he remained a threat and that his history outweighed reasons to show leniency. On April 17, 2025, they gave capital punishment. During sentencing, the family asked why. He stayed silent, as court rules did not allow him to speak. The judge then set the formal penalty method as provided by law. He is now held under that sentence and waiting on appeals. His legal team has appealed the penalty decision, but not the guilty plea. The cost for his defense fell on public funds. It totaled about $1.8 million. Defense fees were nearly $1.3 million, including about $400,000 for his main lawyer. Next is one cop, one traffic stop, and a man with nothing left to lose. Robert Solless was born around 1972. His early life is mostly a blank. Few family details, little background. But what followed left a long trail of damage. Over 3 decades, his name came up in cases involving theft, manipulation, and serious misconduct. And when sentencing came, the courtroom filled with voices, over 40 people, victims, witnesses, informants. One woman said he forced himself on her when she was just 14. She became pregnant. Another said it began at 11. Their stories shared a pattern. Solless preyed on the vulnerable, used charm to disarm, used control to dominate, and he never stopped. Before the 2019 incident, Solless already had a record. In 2002, Harris County found him guilty of holding someone against their will and of an aggressive act involving a weapon. He kept going after that. He did minor thefts and thefts involving a weapon. He also forced harmful contact over many years. Prosecutors said he lied often, manipulated people, and ignored others' well-being. He used trust to harm people. For example, he approached a widow, gained her trust, and took advantage to get money. By the time he met Deputy Dhaliwal, Solless was breaking the terms of his release and had active warrants. He also carried a weapon illegally. On September 27, 2019, Deputy Sandeep Dhaliwal, the first deputy in Harris County who observed Sikh practices, stopped Solless during a routine check in a neighborhood north of Houston. Dhaliwal was 42 then. Video from Dhaliwal shows what happened next. Solless broke out of his car. He told the deputy to surrender. He pushed Dhaliwal against the patrol car. Then he used his weapon from behind, causing Dhaliwal to pass away. Investigators reported that Solless had lied about his identity and past service claims. He did not cooperate when asked. When Dhaliwal retrieved his notebook, Solless saw that as a threat and reacted aggressively. In court, Solless later said he thought he was in a movie and did not fully control the weapon when it discharged. People asked why Solless caused a uniformed deputy to pass away. They wondered if he acted in self-defense or out of extreme fear. Prosecutors said he acted on purpose to avoid returning to jail. Solless faced the most serious charge and went to trial in October 2022. Shortly before closing arguments, he dismissed his lawyers and chose to speak for himself. In his opening, he claimed he did not intend a harmful outcome when the weapon fired. The jury watched the body camera footage. After about 25 and 30 minutes of discussion, they found him guilty of the most serious offense. In the sentencing phase, many spoke about harm he had caused. A 16-year-old who had been harmed earlier addressed him directly. She said, "No one likes you. I am relieved you will face the harshest sentence." The court reacted strongly when she left. Solless offered no witnesses. He made one brief statement before sentencing. "The only thing I have to say is that it's your decision to make. My life is in your hands." He later said he deserved the harshest sentence and did not ask for leniency. On October 26, 2022, after about 35 minutes of deliberation, the jury recommended the harshest sentence so he could not harm others again. The court gave him that outcome. Robert Solless is now 53. He remains in custody awaiting final review. Now, how did one man slip through the system until the bodies started turning up? But before we move on to the next case, consider subscribing to the channel for more stories like these. Lucky Ward was born in 1964. As an adult, he faced many struggles. He experienced homelessness. He dealt with substance use. Records show he was convicted of theft. He also faced charges for using a harmful tool that caused serious harm. He was found carrying a harmful tool in a secured facility. He was also convicted of possessing an illegal substance. These entries show repeated illegal acts and ongoing struggles. In 2010, things grew much worse for him. On 2 separate occasions in Houston, he held 2 vulnerable women by the neck until they stopped breathing. One was a transgender woman named Charlie Rodriguez. The other was a 52-year-old woman named Rita Long. Both were without stable housing like Ward. They met while living on the edges of society. Investigators think he chose them because they were isolated. He may have believed they were less likely to be missed or to protect themselves. His motive seems tied to desperation, influence of substances, and deep anger. It appears he tried to assert control in a life he saw as chaotic. On November 5, 2010, Houston officers announced his arrest. They linked him to Rita Long's case. They also connected him to Charlie Rodriguez's earlier loss of life. They noted he might be tied to 2 other cases downtown under review. Surveillance images show Ward with these women in the hours before each tragic event. He was described as a black man without stable housing at that time. During questioning, Ward gave different versions of events. He said he had been near those locations but denied causing the losses of life. His statements were uncertain. Prosecutors used this to describe him as a dangerous person. The trial took place in Harris County District Court. The case fell into the most serious category because it involved ending lives. Prosecutors described Ward's background. They noted his history of harmful acts, substance struggles, and the 2 fatal incidents. They argued he picked victims fitting a clear pattern. They said this showed intent. The defense focused on his mental health and hard life on society's margins. They said his struggles and substance issues made planning in advance unlikely. They asked the jury to consider the most severe punishment short of ending his life. They sought a sentence of life in custody. The jury met for under 5 hours. They found him responsible for both fatal incidents. On March 13, 2020, they chose capital punishment. This decision leads toward the final outcome provided by law at that time. As of today, he is held alone in the section for people awaiting the sentence. He lives under strict conditions. The next victim changed her faith, fell in love, and became her father's target. Ali Mahmud Awad Irsan was born in 1957. He moved to the United States in 1979 on a student visa. He became a U.S. citizen in 1986. He studied auto mechanics at Kirkwood Community College in Iowa. He also studied at Houston Community College and earned a diploma in auto mechanics. He first married Robin Jacobs around 1980. They had 4 daughters, Nasima, Nadia, Nesreen, and Nada. In 1992, he returned to Jordan for a short time. While still married to Jacobs, he married Shmu al-Rawabdeh, a young woman from Jordan. They had a first child, Nasim. In 1995, Shmu moved to Texas and joined his household. She later gave birth to 7 more children. Irsan described himself as devoutly Muslim. He raised his daughters in a rural area of Montgomery County, Texas. He homeschooled them. 2 daughters, Nadia and Nesreen, asked to study biology at Lone Star College, Montgomery. He first resisted but then allowed it. For nearly 20 years, he ran a complex fraud scheme. From 1990 to 2014, he claimed federal disability benefits. He said he had fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue, though those claims were false. He hid assets in bank accounts in Jordan and in the U.S. He held credit cards under false names. He collected welfare payments while keeping large sums hidden. Federal authorities looked into him. The Social Security Office of Inspector General, the FBI, and Homeland Security all investigated. In May 2014, he and some family members were arrested on federal charges tied to those false benefit claims. The tension in his family grew when Nesreen, then in college, fell in love with Cody Beavers, a Christian man from Houston, in 2009. They kept their relationship secret. Irsan had warned his daughters that marrying outside their culture or faith would bring serious consequences. He threatened harm if they did not obey. While in college, Nesrine became close to Galare Bagherzadeh. She was an Iranian-American medical researcher and activist. She also had changed her faith. Bagherzadeh supported Nesrine through that change. According to prosecutors, Irsan blamed Nesrine's husband and friend for bringing dishonor on the family. He planned to target them first. Then he planned harm against Nesrine, her twin Corey, and their mother, aiming to make the harm deeper. On January 15, 2012, Irsan, his son Nassim, and Shmu followed Bagherzadeh to her townhouse in the Galleria area. Nassim fired a handgun at her while she sat in her vehicle. She did not survive. Her passing shocked the community. It led to a large reward offer from Crime Stoppers in Houston. 11 months later, on November 12, 2012, Irsan waited for Cody Beavers as he returned home in northwest Harris County. He fired a .22 caliber revolver at him. Cody did not survive. A few days later, investigators searched Irsan's property. They found a list with license plate numbers and addresses for both victims. They also found GPS devices showing that Irsan's vehicles had traveled to each incident site. The Harris County Sheriff's Office and the FBI led the investigation. Earlier in 2012, Irsan had been questioned and then released due to lack of proof. After Cody's passing, a SWAT team searched his property again. In May 2014, authorities arrested him and his family on both federal fraud charges and state charges related to those two fatal incidents. In April 2015, local prosecutors added charges linking the two cases as part of one scheme. His wife, Shmu, agreed to give testimony. His daughter Nadia faced charges for unwanted following and later received probation. His son Nassim later admitted responsibility in Bagherzadeh's case in 2019 and received a 40-year term. The prosecution described the motive as preserving family honor. Irsan believed Nesrine's change in faith and marriage would damage his reputation. Witnesses, including Shmu, said he spoke of harming his daughter if she disobeyed. Shmu testified that running away from home would bring shame. She said an intimate relationship before marriage would be seen as dishonoring the family. The trial began on June 25, 2018, at a federal courthouse in Houston. The venue had moved because another courthouse was under repair after Hurricane Harvey. The state sought the harshest punishment allowed by law. After about 6 weeks of testimony and strong evidence, the jury reached a guilty verdict in about 35 minutes. The sentencing phase revealed more: Irsan's disturbing intentions toward his daughter, his embrace of extreme ideas, and ongoing threats to others. After about 9 hours of jury discussion, the sentence was decided on August 14, 2018. He received 2 sentences that keep him confined without a chance for release. He was moved to the Polunsky unit, where he remains while the case continues through appeals. On February 26, 2025, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals confirmed his conviction and sentences. The court rejected all 30 points of error he raised. Next is one officer, one store owner, one Christmas Eve. What happened in that parking lot still haunts the department. Harlem, Harold Lewis III, was born in 1991. His father, Harlem Harold Lewis Jr., was serving a long prison sentence for substance trafficking and other offenses. The father was not present in his life. His mother took on most responsibilities. He had siblings and extended relatives around him. A cousin said Lewis felt like my brother. Teachers remembered him as quiet and obedient. He earned a 3.24 GPA in vocational courses. Before the events of December 24, 2012, Lewis was already on law enforcement's radar. He had been arrested for taking jewelry without permission. He served time for having illegal substances. He was also accused of breaking into cars and homes. He was linked to substance sales. In the trial, for the most serious charges, his defense noted that his IQ was around 70. His test scores were lower than those of many peers. On Christmas Eve, Lewis did not stop when an officer signaled him during a routine traffic stop in Bel Air. He led the officer, Corporal Jimmy Norman, on a chase. The chase ended in the parking lot of a Mako auto body shop. When the officer tried to pull him from the car, Lewis said he was reaching for his phone. The prosecution said he was grabbing a .380 caliber pistol. A struggle followed. Within seconds, gunfire happened. The officer was struck in the head at very close range. A store owner, Terry Taylor, came out to help. He was also struck. Neither survived the injuries. Lewis was arrested at the scene. He received medical attention and then was held in jail. In July 2014, a jury heard different accounts of what happened. The prosecution showed dashcam and surveillance video. The videos showed Lewis refusing to stop, and how quickly the situation spiraled out of control. The defense described Lewis as overwhelmed, inexperienced, and facing mental limits. They said his low IQ and fear of authority led to his reaction. The jury did not accept leniency. They found him guilty on the most serious charges for causing the loss of life of a law enforcement officer and a civilian in the same event. After about 12 hours of deliberation, they decided he posed a continuing threat. They gave him the most severe punishment allowed by law. On July 29, 2014, the court imposed that punishment. In the courtroom, he was silent when asked if he had anything to say. He only shook his head. In April 2017, Texas's Court of Criminal Appeals kept the punishment in place. They denied claims of legal errors. As of December 2023, prosecutors were asking federal courts to review his claim of intellectual disability. His situation remained unresolved as of mid-2025. The next man couldn't let her go, so he came back with two weapons. Jeffrey Keith Prevost was born in 1956. He was a black man. He had a long history of illegal behavior. He spent much of his adult life in and out of Texas prisons. In the late 1980s, he served about 20 years for a serious harmful act that originally involved an attempt to take a life. He was also convicted several times for breaking into properties, taking property without permission, and harmful acts toward women. Public information about his childhood is limited. During his trial for a serious offense, testimony suggested he had a difficult upbringing. His siblings faced tragedy. His mother had mental health challenges. In early 2011, Prevost was 54. He met a 51-year-old woman named Sherry White from South Houston. They had known each other before his prison time. They dated for about 2 months. The relationship ended when she chose to end it. On May 20th, 2011, he felt overwhelming jealousy. He went to her home in Sunnyside. He brought a firearm and a sharp object. His anger led to severe harm. Inside the home, he used a firearm against Sherry's 20-year-old son, Kyle Laverne. Authorities believe Kyle was trying to leave. Kyle lost his life during that incident. Then Prevost focused on Sherry White. He inflicted at least 21 wounds with a sharp tool. He also used the firearm against her multiple times. One shot led to her loss of life. She was in the bathroom when this happened. After they did not answer calls for over a day, family raised an alert. After about 24 to 36 hours, family members forced entry. They found both with no signs of life. There was dried fluid on the floor. Prevost was taken into custody soon after. He admitted what he had done. He said he caused Sherry's passing out of jealousy. He said he used the firearm against her son as he tried to leave. When arrested, he was 51 years old. Records showed he had harmed women in the past. He had spent time in prison for serious offenses. In March 2014, his trial began in a Harris County court. The judge was Mark Kent Ellis. He pleaded guilty. He skipped a hearing on guilt. He let the jury decide the punishment. The prosecution described the harmful acts in detail. They said he used a firearm and a sharp object in a severe way. The defense noted his difficult past. They said he had experienced trauma. His mother had mental health issues. His infant daughter had passed away. His relationships with women had been unstable. During jury selection, jurors decided between capital punishment and a sentence of life without another chance. Witnesses spoke about his past harmful acts. They described how serious the incidents were. The defense again noted his background. On March the 24th, 2014, the jury chose the most severe punishment. The judge approved this choice. An automatic appeal went to the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. On February 24, 2016, that court confirmed the outcome. It rejected his challenges about how jurors were chosen, instructions to the jury, and other procedures. The next story started as a visit but turned into a nightmare inside their mother's home. Jaime Pierro Cole was born in 1970 in Ecuador. He was adopted by an American couple. He grew up in Texas. He faced strong feelings of loss after being separated from his birth mother. He later said he carried that pain into adulthood. His adoptive parents provided a stable home. Still, he never fully shook the sense of emptiness. As an adult, he married Melissa Dawn Cole, who was born in 1978. They had 2 sons. The older son was born around 2002 and would be 23 in 2025. The younger son was born around 2008 and would be 17 now. Melissa also had a daughter, Alicia Desiree Castillo, age 15 at the time, from a previous relationship. The blended family lived in Southeast Houston. In the months before the incident, Jaime and Melissa separated. In early January 2010, Melissa moved out with their 2 sons and Alicia. Jaime's drinking got worse. He became depressed. His lawyers later said this began after the breakdown from the separation. Family members said he had moments when he seemed calm. He sometimes spent time with his children. Still, the separation hit him hard. He told officers he felt abandoned again, as he had when he was taken from his birth mother. Before these events, Jaime had been arrested for minor offenses. He had shown harmful behavior toward partners. One former partner said he once put his hand around her throat. She said he had used a shotgun in a threat when she was pregnant. He had also faced charges for causing harm and for having controlled substances. On February 3, 2010, Jaime bought a .22 caliber semi-automatic pistol and ammunition. The next day, February 4, 2010, he took his two sons out. He returned them to Melissa's apartment. A verbal argument began. The children and a visiting niece saw the conflict grow worse. Neighbors heard raised voices. Then Jaime suddenly pulled out the gun. He fired at Melissa several times. When Alicia tried to step in, he chased her into her bedroom. He fired at her as well. Neither Melissa nor Alicia survived. Jaime later said he did not plan this in advance. He said he bought the gun in a moment of strong emotion. He said he did not expect the children to see what happened. After those events, he left with his toddler. He went to Wharton County. Security cameras showed him at a store buying diapers and ammunition. He was taken into custody that same night at the store. In a recorded interview, he cried. He said he wanted officers to end his life instead of facing prison. He said he had no bullets left at that point. He said he wished he had acted on his own. He said his plan was driven by anger over the separation and deep emotional collapse. He said he hoped his older son and Alicia would live with his sister in Ecuador if something happened to him. Jaime went to trial in Harris County in October 2011. He faced 2 counts for causing the loss of life of his estranged wife and stepdaughter in a single act. The jury found him responsible. During the penalty phase, jurors considered whether he posed an ongoing danger and whether reasons existed to impose a lesser penalty. They answered both questions affirmatively. They decided on the highest possible punishment to be carried out by injection. He was the first Hispanic in Harris County to receive this outcome since 2004. After conviction, Jaime sought appeal and other reviews. He raised many claims, including that his lawyers had not done enough. State and federal courts reviewed his case. They found no major errors in the process. They said his defense had presented a clear account of his background and struggles. As of 2025, Jaime remains in a secure facility awaiting the final result of his sentence. His case continues to move through the legal steps that follow a conviction and appeal. The next incident happened fast, too fast, and the jury's decision was even faster. Harper was born in 1969. He was an adult living in Houston County when the incident took place. In October 2008, a night in southwest Houston ended in tragedy. Harper is accused of striking his 38-year-old partner, Triska Rose, with a sharp tool because he thought she was unfaithful. He then tied up her 2 daughters, aged 15 and 7. He harmed the younger child until she did not survive. Police report that none of the 3 left that night alive. The speed and harshness of the event shocked the community. It highlighted how serious domestic conflicts can become. After the incident on October 24, 2008, authorities arrested Harper. He faced the most serious charge under Texas law. The case went to the 182nd Judicial District Court in Harris County. When the court process began in October 2010, the prosecution moved quickly. They presented what they said was his confession. They showed forensic evidence. They described sudden aggressive behavior driven by jealousy. In opening statements, some argued he deserves to face the ultimate penalty. Harper's defense highlighted mental health issues. They said he had serious psychological problems. That argument did not sway the jury. On October 7, 2010, after about 3 minutes of discussion, the jury found him responsible for the incident. 11 days later, on October 18, 2010, the same jury imposed capital punishment. The sentencing took around 5 minutes. This rapid decision showed how seriously they viewed what happened. Harper's case then went through appeals. He challenged how jurors were chosen and claimed his lawyer had not done enough. Higher courts, including the Fifth Circuit, denied his appeals and kept the verdict and sentence as they were. 12 years after the original sentence, Harper remains at the facility for those awaiting the final penalty. He continues through the legal process related to his sentence. Up next are 89 missed calls, 1 obsessed ex, and a police officer caught in the crossfire. Mahmud J. Landor III was born in 1980. He had 3 children with his former partner, Lakadra Franklin. Their relationship became unstable. In late 2008, he called her many times. Records show he made 89 calls between midnight and 8:44 a.m. on December 7th of that year. Before the later incident, Landor had been convicted in Harris County for a serious impaired driving offense. He received a 2-year sentence, served at the same time as another sentence. This history helps explain his mindset and patterns before what happened next. Around 8:30 a.m., officers responded to a disturbance at Franklin's apartment. Officer Timothy Abernethy saw Landor driving a red Dodge Durango registered to his stepbrother. The officer checked the license plate and signaled him to stop. Landor left the vehicle and ran into the nearby Luxor Park apartments. People who lived nearby saw Landor hide behind a building. They saw him fire at Officer Abernethy as the officer chased him. One witness heard 2 shots first, then 4 or 5 more. The officer was struck in the arm and neck. A final shot hit him in the head at close range. He did not survive. Landor was found later at a house tied to the vehicle's registration. Investigators saw gunshot residue in the car. They also found his fingerprints on the vehicle. On video, he said he had a .45 pistol and had intended to harm himself. He claimed he fired in self-defense. He said he fell and the gun went off. He also said the officer reached for his weapon and he responded by shooting. At a hearing before trial, Landor said he was forced and threatened. The judge decided his statement was given freely. The court noted he got his rights read, was treated properly, and had food and restroom breaks. The video of his statement was used as evidence. In April 2010, a jury found Landor guilty of the most serious charge for causing the officer's passing. Prosecutors said he lay in wait for Officer Abernethy and fired without concern. People who knew them, including Franklin, neighbors, and the officer's co-workers, gave testimony. Phone records showed his obsessive calls beforehand. Prosecutors said his past actions and state of mind meant he could cause harm again. After about 3 hours of jury discussion, Landor received the highest possible sentence. It was the first time Harris County issued this sentence since 2007. At sentencing, Abernethy's family spoke. His son TJ said calmly, "From the bottom of my heart, I forgive you." His mother said, "I forgive you, but justice must be served. He has no conscience, so he needs to face the highest penalty." This mix of forgiveness and resolve made an impact. Landor's conviction and sentence were upheld on direct appeal in April 2010. Later appeals raised issues like a forced statement and possible substance influence, but they were all denied. He remains in a Texas facility awaiting the outcome of final procedures. Was the next Teens Act about fear, power, or something far more personal? Dexter Darnell Johnson was born in early June 1988 in Houston, Harris County. He grew up in a home with ongoing struggles. His father was mostly absent. His mother, Renee Johnson, did her best but faced financial pressure. Dexter had one daughter, born when he was a teenager, but he saw her only rarely. He often lived with different relatives. He moved between schools and had trouble with studies and making friends. Teachers said he was quiet, seemed withdrawn, and sometimes stuttered. That suggested he was under stress. Renee spoke in court. She said Dexter was not someone who would do what he was accused of. She felt people had judged him unfairly. The prosecution argued otherwise. They said his actions showed a very different side. In his teens, Dexter had minor run-ins with the law. He was caught for small thefts and for having illegal substances. He left school early. He spent a lot of time alone or with a small circle. That period involved poor choices and increasing isolation. On June 18, 2006, just after his 18th birthday, Dexter and 4 others set out in Houston. They were in a group moving through different areas. They came across Maria Apareci, 23, and her boyfriend Huy Ngo, 17. The couple was in a parked car on a quiet street in southeast Houston. Dexter had a shotgun. He forced them into the back seat. He demanded money, bank cards, and pins. During that ride, he forced unwanted physical contact on Maria, while her boyfriend was made to watch. Fear was intense. They were driven to a remote wooded spot. There, Dexter and another teen fired shots at both Maria and Huy in the head. Neither survived. They took $25 in cash and 1 bank card. Prosecutors said this was part of about 25 days of actions that included several thefts and 3 other incidents where people did not survive. In June 2007, Dexter went on trial in Harris County District Court before Judge Denise Collins. He faced charges for taking the lives of Maria and Huy, plus charges for serious theft, forced confinement, and the forced physical contact. The prosecution said he started and led the group. Investigators and surveillance tied him to spending with the stolen bank card. In a questioning session, he said he drove the car, forced the unwanted physical contact, and claimed he fired to scare Huy. He denied being the one whose actions ended their lives. The jury met for about 2 hours and found him guilty. In the next phase, the focus was on punishment. The prosecution described him as cold and without regret. They said he seemed to take pleasure in what happened. That statement caused strong reactions in court. When the most severe penalty was announced, Dexter reacted angrily. He grabbed a chair and threw it. He shouted. Officers restrained him. Some family members in the courtroom fainted. The judge imposed the highest penalty available at that time. Dexter was 19. He was sent to a unit where people under that penalty wait while appeals go on. For many years, he maintained he was not responsible in the way described and said his legal help had been poor. In 2019, he filed a new appeal. He claimed he had an intellectual disability. He pointed to a low IQ score, around 70, his stutter, possible brain injury, and mental health concerns, including schizophrenia. Federal judges paused any plans to carry out the sentence twice, in April and again in August 2019, so they could review whether he should face the highest penalty under U.S. Supreme Court guidelines. State courts pushed back against those pauses. The review process continued. As of June 18, 2025, his original trial outcome and penalty remain in place, but the question of his intellectual disability is still under review in federal court. Dexter Johnson is now 37. He remains under the court's highest penalty, but no final action on that has happened yet while appeals continue.